Okay, we can start with the class. Good evening, everyone. Okay, so let's look at cost volume profit analysis. Cost volume profit analysis is used for decision making. We use cost volume profit analysis for decision making. So in that sense, that's why you see we only focus on variable cost when you are calculating them cost volume profit analysis, because cost volume profit analysis is used for decision making. So it is there to analyze or investigate the change in profit that result from change in activity level, the unit selling price, total fixed cost per unit variable cost. So what we will be trying to do here is to investigate if we change the activity level, what is going to happen? So in that case, we call it a decision-making tool. We use it to make decisions. So that's why you will see that when we are calculating the contribution, we only focus on variable cost, because fixed costs are not going to be used in decision making. Remember, when we were doing relevant costing, we say it's a decision making whereby we have to use incremental cost. So in the sense that cost volume profit analysis is used for decision making, you will see that we only focus on the variables when we are calculating the contribution. So I think we are just repeating what we did in 2601. These are part of 2601, break-even point, the point where you make, there is a zero profit here at the break-even point. So there is going to be zero profit. You still haven't started to make a profit. That's the break-even point. You only have to cover the fixed cost. So this is the formula for break-even point in units. And contribution per unit is equal to sales per unit minus variable cost per unit. So in your question, you should be able to pick the variables cost so that you can be able to calculate your contribution. Then there are three methods that we use to calculate a break-even point. There is the profit formula, the contribution margin, but the most widely used is this contribution margin formula. That's the one that is used most. The break-even chart, that's another way of calculating the break-even point. Then let's look at the profit formula. Right, when you are dealing with the profit formula, I think you guys just need to know this formula, to know how to use this formula. Here, profit is calculated as the difference between total revenue and total cost. So if the question requires you to calculate the break-even point using the profit formula, it means you just come here and you substitute figures here, where P is equal to profit, SP is selling price, X is number of units sold, FC fixed cost per unit per annum, and VC variable cost per unit. So let's do this activity one together to calculate, to use the profit formula and see if we can be able to familiarize ourselves. They say you are considering opening a new business selling lawnmowers. you have estimated that annual fixed cost will be 750,000. Variable cost will be 1,000 per unit, and you could sell the lawnmower at 2,500 each. Then you are required to use the profit formula to calculate the number of lawnmowers that must be sold to break even. So we just come to our formula here. So we are going to have P is equal to SPX minus FC plus VCX. So when you are using the profit formula to calculate the break-even point, you should substitute P with 0, because at break-even point, the profit is going to be 0. So which means your P is going to be 0. So you just say P is equal to SPX, selling price. Our selling price here is 2,500. So I'm going to say 2,500 X minus FC. FC is the fixed cost minus 750,000 plus the variable cost X. Our variable cost is here, so it's going to be 1,000 X, right? So that's there. So what are we going to do? You use your high school mathematics here. So it's going to be 0 is equal to 2,500 X minus 750,000 plus, no, it's no more going to be plus. This is going to minus. This minus times this plus is going to be minus here. So here it's going to be minus 1,000 X, because we multiply this by this, so it's going to be a minus there, right? Then when we have our figures, then we can now come here and say 0 is equal to minus 1,000 minus here, so it's going to be is equal to 1,500 X minus 750,000. So this one is going to be a minus, because if you say minus this one, yeah, it's still going to be a minus. So which means your end is going to be 1,500 X over 1,500 is equal to 750,000 over 1,500. So that is going to be our break-even units. So how much are we going to have when we are using the profit formula? We're going to have 750,000 divided by 1,500. So our break-even units is going to be, for us to break even, we should make 500 units. So these are the units where there is no profit or a loss. We just break even. So when we talk of break-even point, we are talking of a point where you are not going to make any profit. You just break even to cover the cost. That's your break-even point, right? That's the profit formula. So if the question requires you to use the profit formula, I would advise you to memorize this formula so that you you will be able to use it. But in our third year, most of our questions, they require us to use the contribution margin formula. You will see there's a long question, there's a bit long question at the end that we are going to do together, right? So which means we are here now at the contribution margin formula. Contribution means it's going to contribute. What is going to contribute to the profit of the business, which means we are going to subtract the variable cost from our selling price, then we'll be left with the contribution. So if they requires you to use the contribution margin formula, you come here. This is your formula. But always be careful in the question. If the question requires you to use the break-even units, then you should use the contribution per unit. If the question requires you to calculate the break-even revenue, which means the break-even value, so it means you are going to use the contribution margin ratio. Therefore, if when you are doing your this contribution margin ratio, for those who have done your Mac 3602, this is what you use to call the gross profit percentage. That's the contribution margin ratio, the gross profit percentage. So you should just relate it to the calculation of your gross profit percentage, this contribution margin ratio. So if the question requires you to calculate the break-even revenue, then it means you need now here to calculate first the contribution margin ratio. Then you can now use it here. Right, let's do this activity using they say you are considering opening a new business, selling lawnmower. It's still the same question. We have estimated that the annual fixed cost will be 750,000. Variable cost will be 1,000 per unit, and you could sell the lawnmower at 2,500 each. You are required to calculate the break-even number of lawnmowers using the contribution margin ratio. So here you are required to use the contribution margin ratio. So the first thing that you need here is your, let's see if we can do it here. So the first thing that you need here is your contribution margin ratio. So which means you come here and do your contribution margin ratio. So it's going to be contribution over selling price times 100. What is our contribution here? What is going to be our contribution here? Are you guys there? So we're going to say 2,000.
It's going to...
Yes, 2,500 minus 1,000. Am I right? Over selling price. Our selling price is how much here? It's 2,500. Then we multiply by 100. That is going to be our contribution ratio. So here it's going to be 1,500 over 2,500. So it's going to be 0.6. 0.6 is almost like 60%. I don't know if you guys were together. Then now you are required to calculate the break-even point using the contribution margin. So you come and substitute it on this formula. So it's going to be total fixed cost over contribution margin ratio, which is going to be 750,000 over over 0.6. How much are we going to get as our break-even point in value? So it's going to be 1,250,000. So which means it's going to be 1,250,000. Remember, if the question requires you to do the break-even revenue, that's when you use the contribution margin ratio. So you have to be careful with the question. Does the question requires me to calculate? But another way is to multiply. If you use the break-even units, you can still convert those units to value by multiplying them by the selling price. You still have to get the same figure here. So that's another way. Here we're just doing a revision of your 2601. It's a revision of MAC 2601, what we are busy with now. That there's a situation where you are going to calculate a break-even point with a target profit. I think we did this as well in our 2601. Here, cost volume profit analysis, we can use it to calculate the number of units that must be sold to reach a target profit. So if the question like this one, let's look at this activity. They say you are considering opening a new business, selling lawnmowers. We have estimated that annual fixed cost will be 750,000. Variable cost will be 1,000 per unit, and you could sell the lawnmower, still the same question, but with an additional. So here they say calculate the number of lawnmowers that must be sold to achieve a profit of 150,000. So here you just come to your formula here. You need a target profit. So which means you are going to calculate target units based on the target profit. So you're just going to come and say your total fixed cost is 750,000 plus the target profit of 150,000. Over contribution per unit is going to be 2,500 minus 1,000. Remember, our contribution is selling price minus variable cost. So that's there. So how many units should be produced in order to reach a target profit of 150,000 here? How many units should they make here? So which means we're going to add. So it's going to be 750 plus 150 over 1,500. How much are we going to have? Anyone who got it? Did you guys do that? It's just a matter of adding 750 plus 150, then we divide by 1,500.
It's 600 units.
So we're going to have 600. So if the question requires you to calculate with target units, you just need to add your target profit here to your fixed cost. Then it means when you make 600 units, you are going to cover the fixed cost and make a profit of 150,000. So that's the calculation of the break-even point with target units. So in your question, you just be careful of the word target profit. so that you know you are going to add that target profit to your fixed cost, so that what you are going to make there is now going to cover the profit. I think we're just doing a revision for 2601. Let's look at the margin of safety. We also did this one in our 2601, margin of safety. We are now talking of how far are you from the break-even point, your sales and the break-even point. When we deal with the margin of safety, we want to see how safe is the business to keep on making profit if it happens that the sales level decrease. So that's a margin of safety. So which means we are looking at the expected sales level and the break-even point. The larger the margin of safety, the better, or the more profit. Because if we are far from the break-even point, then it means we are making more profit. For an example, let's say our break-even point is 500. So the 500 units. And as we are selling 800 units, you can see here that we are a bit far from the break-even point. Right, let me just admit this, that two other guys who just come in. Right, so I was saying the margin of safety is going to measure how far are you from the break-even point. That's your margin of safety. How far are your sales from the break-even point? So the larger the margin of safety, the more likely it is that a profit will be made. So when you are very far from the break-even point, then it means you are going to make more profit. And the business is safe because the business is going to be safe if it is far from the margin of safety, if it is far from the break-even point. Because even if the sales drops, you are still going to make profit. Even if sales drops, you are still going to make profit. But if you are working at the break-even, around the break-even point, then it means once the sales drop, then you are going to accumulate a loss now. So that's why it is best to have a higher margin of safety, so that in the event that the sales are not doing well, they are down, you can still be making profit. What I'm trying to say here is, let's say your break-even point is 500 units, right? And you are selling at 550. These are the units that you are selling. So it means here you are not safe in terms of margin of safety. Anything can happen to your sales, then you are down the break-even point, which means at the end of the day, you are going to work for a loss. When a business is working below the break-even point, then that business is likely to close because it is not capable of covering the fixed cost. So there is no way you can operate a business for a long period whilst you cannot be able to cover the fixed cost. So it's very important for management accountants to be able to check on the margin of safety of the organization, so that in the event that anything happens to the sales, they can still be able to continue with the business, right? Let's look at here they say the margin of safety can be expressed in units or as a percentage of projected sales. We can express this as units or as a percentage of projected sales. Here it is, if they ask you to do the margin of safety percentage, which means you are going to subtract from your sales, you subtract your break-even sales over current sales, it's going to give you a margin of safety percentage. Then when you are using the margin of safety units, you are going to have your current sales minus break-even sales. If the question requires you to do the margin of safety units, then it means you just look at the expected sales, then you subtract the break-even sales. Then you are going to have your margin of safety. When you are here, percentage, which means here you are going to express this as a percentage. Let's do this question to illustrate this. They say you are considering opening a new business, selling lawnmowers. You have estimated that annual fixed cost will be 750,000. It's still that same question, but different application. Variable cost will be 1,000 per unit, and you could sell the lawnmower at 2,500. Each assume that during the first year, you expect to sell 750 lawnmowers. These are now going to be your expected sales. So you are required to calculate the margin of safety percentage and the margin of safety units. So you just need to come back to the formula. The margin of safety percentage is going to be current sales minus break-even sales. How many break-even sales? We have calculated this. We got how much? 500. Ne? So which means you are going to say your current sales, which is 750. That's your current sales minus your break-even. We use this question to calculate the break-even. We had 500 over current sales is going to be over 750 times 100. Then it's going to be how much there? It's going to be 250 over 750 times 100. How much are we going to have the percentage there?
%33.33%.
So which means we're going to have are we safe? Is this safe? What as a management account,
Yes.
what are you going to say? Are you going to say that these guys are still they're a bit safe. They're still a bit safe. 33.3% margin of safety, but they need to push a bit here. At least if they can have like 350 or 750, at least it's even if the sales drops, they still know they are going to make a profit. So what you as a management accountant, your job now is to remember you will be working with a management that does not understand these things. So you are there now to advise them. Here, what are we going to do? If the margin of safety is very low, this is a situation where you should recommend an increase in marketing the product. The product need to be marketed, or you can also review the price of the product as a management accountant. Is the price competitive on the market? Is there no anything that we can reduce, the cost that we can reduce so that our price can also be a bit down so that we can increase our sales? So those are the jobs of the management accountant in a business, to advise management on how the business can be profitable, right? Then when they say margin of safety in units, this one is easy. And for your third level, we won't meet all this. We're just doing revision. These questions they are for 2601. The questions that we are going to meet when we do our third level is here. This is third level now. Break-even analysis with multiple products. That's your third level. But here we're just trying to revise our 2601 so that we refresh ourselves. Right, so if it is margin of safety units, then it's going to be easy. Current sales, which is going to be 750,000, minus break even, which is going to be 500, which is going to be 250 units. So that is going to be your, I don't know if there's anyone with a question before we go to here. Break-even analysis with multiple products. That one was our revision for our 2601. So now we're going to look at what you should expect at third level. This is exam standard level at third level. You'll see most of your, it's very rare to write a paper in costing at third level and you don't find this question, which means it's a bonus question to you to do the break-even analysis. As long as you understand what is happening, this is going to be, and it's very rare to do an exam and you don't find this topic. It's very, very rare. Even if you check all the past papers, you will see that it's always there, carrying around 15, 16 marks, 12, 15. So which means those marks, you should maximize them. And also remember, when you are writing exam, there is no order in answering questions. You can start from the last question. As long as you understand the last question better than the others, you can start from there. So don't sit too much on a question that you don't understand in an exam. You need to select the ones that you understand. You answer those ones while you still have energy. Then you will go to the difficult ones. Those ones you are just doing them for the sake, even if you get 2-3 marks, then you know I've already covered myself on the ones that I understand. So that one is very important. Some other students, they don't fail because they don't know 50% of the work, but they can't manage, or they don't have an exam technique. They find themselves trying to do everything, and they now spend a lot of time on things which is not going to earn them marks. So in that regard, you will find yourself, by the time when you go to the easy question, there is no time anymore. So you can't do anything, right? Let's look now at, I think my 40 minutes is over. It's almost over. I will ask you guys to rejoin the class. Let me send the link so that we can do this part. Let me send the link for you guys to rejoin. Remember, my Zoom is still on that. Let me just send the link. So that we can start that long question on Right, I sent the new link now. I'll delete the old link. So let's use the new link to join the class.